In Lusaka, Zambia, Amara woke up on her 25th birthday with hope in her heart. She didn't expect anything big, just a small family gathering, maybe a cake and some laughter. But as she entered the living room, her world shifted. Instead of balloons or candles for her, her parents announced a grand surprise party, for her younger sister Lindayu. Everyone clapped, music played, and Amara's birthday was treated like it didn't exist. She forced a smile so no one would see the sting in her chest, but inside, she felt crushed. Her sister twirled in the center of attention while Amara stood in the shadows, forgotten. The betrayal hit harder than words could explain. All she wanted was a simple moment of recognition, yet here she was, invisible on the day that was supposed to be hers. She kept her head high, not daring to cry in front of them, but her heart screamed silently. That night, as laughter echoed through the house for Lindayu, Amara sat quietly, replaying the scene in her mind. The people who were supposed to love her the most had erased her, as if she didn't matter at all. The pain burned, but somewhere inside her, a tiny spark began to grow, a spark that whispered, "One day, they will regret this." And though she stayed quiet, a plan was already forming deep in her heart. The music was loud, the lights were bright, and the whole house was filled with laughter. But none of it was for Amara. It was still her birthday, yet no one remembered or cared. Instead, everyone danced and cheered for her younger sister Lindayu, who wore a glittering dress and smiled like the star of the night. Amara stood on the side, her heart heavy, but it didn't end there. Her mother placed a tray in her hands and told her to serve drinks to the guests. She walked from table to table, pouring juice and wine for relatives who didn't even look at her. Some even called out rudely, "Bring more here, Amara," as if she was just a servant in her own home. At one point, her aunt, the one who always favored Lindayu, looked her straight in the eye and said with a laugh, "You should be happy for your sister. She is the one worth celebrating." The words stabbed deep, and Amara's lips trembled, but she said nothing. She swallowed the pain and kept moving, her smile thin and forced while her insides felt like breaking glass. Each song, each cheer for Lindayu, was another reminder that she was invisible in her own family. Late that night, when the last guests had left and she was cleaning up the mess, Amara overheard voices from the kitchen. It was her parents, speaking proudly to another relative. Her father said, "We are putting everything into Lindayu's future. She is our hope, our star." Her mother laughed and agreed, "Yes, every kwacha is worth it for her. Amara? She will manage on her own somehow. She doesn't need much. Lindayu is the one who matters." Amara froze where she stood. The words cut through her more sharply than any insult she had ever heard. She pressed her back against the wall, her eyes burning with tears she refused to let fall. In that moment, the truth became clear, her own parents saw her as nothing, a shadow, someone who didn't deserve their care or investment. They weren't just forgetting her birthday. They were telling the world she wasn't important. She could have screamed, she could have walked in and demanded answers, but she didn't. Instead, she stayed silent, her fists clenched. The humiliation was unbearable, but underneath it, a stronger feeling began to grow. If they wanted to treat her as invisible, then she would make herself so visible that the whole world would notice her. If they wanted to say she didn't matter, she would prove them wrong in a way they could never ignore. That night, lying in her bed, Amara stared at the ceiling while the voices of her parents still echoed in her ears. They thought she was nothing. They thought she had no future. But what they didn't know was that she had been quietly preparing for years. Every extra shift at the cafe, every coin saved, every sacrifice, none of it was wasted. While they mocked her, she was building something they could never take away. Amara lay in bed that night, staring into the darkness. The words of her parents replayed in her head again and again like a broken song. Lindayu is the one who matters. Amara will manage on her own somehow. Each word felt like a knife, but she refused to cry. She had already wasted too many tears on a family that couldn't even remember her birthday. This time she made a different choice. She stayed silent. Not because she was weak, but because silence was stronger than anger. Anger fades quickly, but silence holds power. And in that silence, something inside her began to harden. She thought about all the nights she had worked at the small cafe in Kitwe, staying long after closing time to wipe tables and mop floors just so she could earn a little extra. While her sister enjoyed gifts and attention, Amara had been learning the value of every kwacha. She remembered the exhaustion of walking home late at night, her legs aching, but her pockets holding the coins that gave her hope. Nobody in her family ever asked her where she went, what she did, or why she came home so tired. They didn't care. And that had been her advantage. While they ignored her, she built her secret life. Unknown to them, every coin she saved had gone into more than just a jar under her bed. She opened a small savings account, then another. She found ways to invest quietly, learning from people she met at the cafe, men and women who spoke of business and money while sipping coffee. She listened more than she talked, and she learned. Soon, her money started to grow. What began as small savings turned into investments. From there she found side hustles, selling handmade crafts online, then teaming up with a friend to start a small supply business. Each decision was careful, each risk calculated. And no one in her family had the slightest clue. They thought she was just the quiet, ordinary daughter who never needed much. They thought she was easy to overlook. They mocked her, even dismissed her, but their mockery only became fuel for her fire. Each time someone said, "Lindai was worth celebrating," Amara whispered to herself, "Then I will celebrate me." Lying in the silence of her room, she felt the weight of her secret power. She was no longer just the forgotten daughter. She was a woman who had built something of her own, piece by piece, night after night, sacrifice after sacrifice. Her parents thought she had nothing. But if only they knew, she had more than they could ever imagine. She closed her eyes and made a promise to herself, "If I don't matter to them, I'll matter to myself. If they won't see me, I'll shine so bright they won't be able to look away." In that quiet moment, her pain turned into determination. She wasn't broken. She was becoming unstoppable. A week later, Amara woke up early with a calmness that surprised even her. The house was quiet, her family still asleep, and for once she didn't feel the weight of being ignored. Instead, she felt powerful, like a secret was burning inside her. She dressed neatly, picked up her worn-out handbag, and walked out without saying a word to anyone. The sun was just rising as she made her way to the bank, her heart steady, her mind focused. Today was the day she would take the life she had been quietly building and turn it into something no one could deny. When she walked into the bank, the cool air hit her face. She approached the counter with confidence, sliding her documents across to the teller. The young man smiled politely at first, but as he typed her details into the computer and saw the numbers in her account, his eyes widened. He looked at her, then back at the screen, then at her again, almost in disbelief. "Are you sure you want to withdraw this amount?" he asked carefully. Amara nodded without hesitation. She wasn't here to doubt herself. She had earned every single coin, every kwacha, every dollar. Moments later, the printer whirred, and the teller handed her a bank slip. The numbers stared back at her, over $250,000 in savings and profit shares. For the first time, Amara allowed herself a small smile. With that money, she moved fast. She had already done her research, already pictured the place she wanted. A sprawling countryside estate in Livingstone, near the beautiful Zambezi River, a place where the air was fresh and the horizon stretched forever. No mortgages, no loans, no waiting. She paid for it all in cash, and the agents handling the sale could hardly believe it. This young woman, paying millions of kwacha without blinking, they whispered among themselves. But Amara didn't need their validation. She had worked for this moment, quietly, patiently, while everyone else thought she was nothing. When she signed the final papers, her hands didn't shake. She felt a wave of relief, a release of years of hidden struggle. This house wasn't just walls and land. It was proof. Proof that the daughter they ignored had built her own empire. Proof that silence could be stronger than shouting. Proof that she didn't need anyone's permission to matter. Standing on the land for the first time, the wind blowing gently against her face, Amara closed her eyes and breathed in deeply. This was hers. The vineyards, the stables, the wide fields, all hers. She imagined the laughter of her true friends echoing across the gardens, not the cruel voices of family who dismissed her. She imagined freedom, independence, and peace. No one in her family knew where she was or what she was doing that day. To them, she was still the quiet girl in the background. But now, with a single bank slip and a country estate bought in cash, Amara had changed her story forever. The next family gathering was like a cruel repetition of the last one. Music filled the air, laughter echoed, and everyone celebrated Lindy as if she were the only daughter in the house. Amara's name wasn't mentioned, no cake for her, no balloons, no small gesture to even acknowledge her presence. Her parents didn't seem to notice she had walked into the room, and for a moment, the old familiar sting threatened to pull her back into sadness. But this time, Amara didn't feel small or invisible. She had something they could never take away, a life she had built for herself, quietly and with purpose. She arrived late, slipping into the house as the party roared on. All eyes fell on her the moment she stepped in. Gone was the timid girl who had spent years being overlooked. In her place stood a young woman in an elegant gown, her posture straight, her gaze calm but commanding. The room went quiet, whispers rippling through the crowd. Even Lindy's smile faltered as she noticed the change. Her parents exchanged confused glances, unsure what to make of their daughter's sudden transformation. Someone finally asked, trying to cover embarrassment with sarcasm, "Why are you sulking again, Amara?" She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she walked to the center of the room, reached into her clutch, and slowly placed a small set of keys on the polished table. The silence deepened as everyone leaned closer, curiosity mixed with confusion. "While you canceled my birthday," she said clearly, her voice steady and strong, "I bought a country house. Cash." Time seemed to stop. Lindy's mouth opened, then closed. Her parents froze, staring at the keys as if they were a puzzle they couldn't solve. Relatives gasped, whispers turning into murmurs, murmurs into shocked chatter. Nobody had seen this coming. The quiet daughter, the one they ignored, the one they mocked, had achieved what they thought was impossible. She had transformed her pain into power, her silence into action, and her invisibility into a statement that could not be ignored. Amara didn't wait for their reactions. She let the truth speak for itself. The keys gleamed under the soft lights, symbolizing freedom, independence, and victory. She had worked hard, planned wisely, and claimed her own space in the world. This wasn't just a house, it was a declaration that she mattered, that she was no longer at the mercy of those who had disregarded her. As she turned back to the party, whispers and shocked faces trailing her, Amara smiled softly to herself. She felt no bitterness, only the quiet satisfaction of knowing she had changed the rules of the game. That night, she was no longer the daughter who faded into the background. She was the one who had the last word, and for the first time, everyone in the room knew it. Lindy tried to play it off. She laughed nervously, tilting her head as if it were a joke, and said, "It's probably just a small shack or something. Don't get carried away, Amara." Her words were meant to cut, to make Amara seem foolish, but this time they landed on nothing. Amara didn't respond. Her lips curved into a quiet, knowing smile as she left the room without another word. The crowd was still murmuring, trying to piece together what had just happened, but Lindy's attempt to dismiss her only made the moment more electric. By the next morning, the news of Amara's country house had exploded online. Photos started appearing on social media, vineyards stretching under the sun, stables with horses, guest houses with shining windows, and wide-open fields leading down to the Zambezi River. The beauty and scale of it stunned everyone who saw it. People tagged friends and family, commenting, "This is unbelievable. Amara did all this herself." Within hours, the story went viral. Relatives who had ignored her for years stared at their screens in disbelief, whispering to each other in hushed tones. Amara? The quiet one? She built all this? Her parents were in shock. They called her, demanded to know how she had done it, and even questioned if it was some kind of scam. Every question was met with silence. For the first time, Amara didn't feel the need to explain herself. She didn't need their approval, their jealousy, or even their understanding. The power of her actions spoke louder than words ever could. She had turned every insult, every dismissal, every moment of neglect into fuel to build something no one in her family had imagined. Lindive's envy became obvious in the days that followed. She scrolled through Amara's posts, her laughter replaced by bitterness. How did she do all this? She muttered to herself, unable to hide the shock. Friends and distant relatives who once laughed at Amara now looked at her with awe and respect. Conversations at family gatherings changed tone entirely, whispers of, "She's unstoppable," and, "I never expected this," floated across rooms. Meanwhile, Amara continued to live her life quietly, focusing on her new estate, her projects, and her freedom. She didn't need to argue, explain, or prove herself to anyone anymore. Her parents, who had once dismissed her birthday and her existence, were now forced to watch as she carved her own path, untouchable and unbothered. The daughter they thought was invisible had become impossible to ignore, and for the first time, the family realized they had underestimated her completely. Amara didn't gloat, she didn't need to. The estate, the viral photos, the whispers, it all did the talking. And with every post and every picture, she reminded the world, and her family, that she had chosen herself first, and nothing could take that away. Amara's birthday celebration didn't happen on the day the world expected it. Instead, she planned it on her own terms, at her new estate near the Zambezi River. The sun was setting when the first guests began arriving, friends, mentors, colleagues, and people who had supported her quietly over the years. Every detail reflected her hard work and vision. Sparkling lights hung from the trees, long tables overflowed with food and flowers, and music filled the air, blending with the gentle breeze across the fields. There was no one from her family on the guest list. This was her night, her moment, and she had no intention of inviting those who had once dismissed her. As the party gained energy, Amara watched from the center of it all, her heart full. Laughter bubbled up around her, glasses clinked in toasts, and stories of hard work and dreams shared filled the air. People raised their glasses to her independence, to her courage, to the woman who had quietly built something extraordinary while being ignored. Every smile, every word of admiration, every cheer made the sting of past neglect fade a little more. She felt a deep, satisfying sense of triumph, not revenge, but proof that she had chosen herself first and succeeded. Meanwhile, her parents had arrived, expecting to see the usual family gathering. But when they reached the massive wooden doors of the estate, they realized they weren't welcome. Amara watched from a distance as their faces changed from curiosity to shock, disbelief, and finally, helplessness. They knocked, pleaded, but the doors remained closed. Behind them, music and laughter spilled out, carrying her victory in every note. She didn't need to explain herself, the celebration itself was the message. Inside, the party continued late into the night. Guests danced, sang, and shared in Amara's joy. For once, she didn't have to hide in the shadows or serve anyone else. This was her celebration, built entirely on her own strength, vision, and determination. The estate, the music, the laughter, it all belonged to her, and she savored every second. Her parents, locked outside, could only watch as the life they had ignored thrived without them. For the first time, they felt the weight of what they had lost, a quiet regret that no apology could erase. Amara didn't look back. She walked among her friends, her heart light, a smile on her face, knowing she had finally claimed her own happiness. That night, She didn't just celebrate a birthday, she celebrated herself, her independence, and the life she had fought so hard to build. The celebration was winding down when her father finally found a moment to speak with her. He stood on the gravel driveway, his face a mixture of anger, confusion, and hurt. "Amara," he called out, voice tense, "we're family. You should share. This, all of this, it's too much. You shouldn't have done this alone." He stepped closer, as if proximity could somehow remind her of the girl they once knew, the quiet daughter they had ignored. Amara looked at him calmly, her gaze steady, unshaken. There was no anger in her voice, only clarity and finality. "Family doesn't cancel birthdays," she said softly, "family doesn't erase one child for another. You chose Lindayu. I chose myself." Each word landed with weight, more powerful than any argument he could make. It wasn't just a reply, it was a statement of truth, the sum of every year she had been overlooked, every insult, every moment of neglect transformed into her strength. Her father opened his mouth to speak, to argue, to justify, but no words came. He realized, finally, what he had ignored for so long. The daughter they dismissed, the one they thought they could overlook, was now untouchable. She didn't need them, she didn't need their validation, and she didn't need their approval. Every moment of mockery and neglect had only built the woman standing before them, confident, independent, and unstoppable. Amara turned on her heel and walked back toward her mansion. The massive doors swung closed behind her, shutting out the past and everything they represented. Behind those doors, laughter, music, and life awaited her, a life she had claimed entirely on her own. Her parents stood frozen on the gravel driveway, staring at the closed doors, realizing too late that the daughter they had dismissed was gone, not in absence, but in power, untouchable, and finally free.